Alrighty everyone, hello. And today I really want to talk to you guys about just the concept of maybe not doing 18 different holiday things all the time and instead actively participating in syncretism. And by that I mean, of course, syncretizing Christmas and Yule in a way that actually makes sense. Now I can already hear a bunch of people saying, wait a minute, Sarah, but Christians basically just stole Yule, so aren't they the same thing anyway? No good viewer of mine should be sitting there parroting the complete misinformation that Christians stole Yule. Yule, as it is now, is pretty much an amalgamation of many different cultures, winter solstice celebrations that go under many different names. It's a neo-pagan thing. It's something that was honestly kind of bastardized from its original practices and interpretations, and it has absolutely no bearing on Christmas. Obviously, there are some things that have carried over from pagan culture into Christian tradition, and that is largely because of syncretism. Syncretism is when, two cultures or religions or languages happen to be next to each other, and then they just happen to share components, right? They trade, they share, they kind of mix together. It's not that Christians looked at pagans and said, wow, I like your stuff, and stole it as they took over. And in fact, we do have some evidence of very early popes being very annoyed with the fact that people kept syncretizing things and dragging old traditions into the Christian holidays. But the point is, what really happened is that a lot of pagans would just kind of take their old traditions and repurpose them with the religion they converted to so that they could continue doing them. They found new reasons to continue the same things they were doing. This here is not a video about the history of Christian holidays and the history of pagan holidays. In fact, Religion for Breakfast actually has a really good video on Yule and Christmas that you should check out because that one's got a lot of really great history in it. But what this is instead me arguing that instead of celebrating Yule and Christmas separately, Christian witches have a unique opportunity to basically celebrate both at the same time. And that is largely because even if they are completely different religions and from completely different places, with completely different figures and heroes and narrative structures, the story of Yule, as we know it now, and the story of Christmas have many overlapping themes. This is why syncretism was so successful in the first place. Because these themes overlap so well, it was very easy to repurpose Evergreen to, instead of symbolizing life in the middle of a wintry death, symbolizing faith in God that all would come to light again. And that brings us to our first overlapping theme that unites Yule and Christmas, which is the birth of the sun, or rather the Son of God. So in many pagan cultures, there was this idea that the wintertime, the pretty much absolute darkest days, coldest days, there's no food, there's a lot of danger. This was a time where spirits would run around. And specifically in Slavic cultures, Eastern Slavic cultures, they had a festival called Kolyada. And if you look at it, it looks a lot like the Celtic idea of Samhain. People would wear masks, they would have bonfires, they would try to scare away spirits, they'd be dancing and stuff because it was believed that Veles, the god of mischief and magic, was out there, outside of his domain of the underworld, Nav, and he had his spirits roaming about, just kind of causing chaos and causing mischief. There was Morana, the goddess of magic, the night, winter, nightmares, all that kind of stuff, who was also afoot, causing a lot of interesting things going on. So it was a time where pretty much the world was dark and chaos was rampant. But on the darkest day of the year comes the birth of the sun god. In some cultures that's Mithras, like in the Greeks. In some cultures that's Dashbog, right? Or in Slovenia specifically Kresnik. They get born, here they are, the sun god, and they're a baby now, and they're going to make it through, and then they're going to grow up through spring, and then they're going to peak in midsummer, and that's just the great, crescendo of this energy before it wanes back off to repeat that cycle. This is the general narrative idea of the winter solstice across many different pagan cultures. The god of the sun is born, and with his birth, the winter starts to recede, the darkness starts to recede as he grows up. What is Jesus, if not the light of the world? On his birthday, right, when he's born, it's the light of the world, the Son of God, has come to us to save us, help us, all these other kinds of things, right? He's just a baby now, but as he grows up, he's going to, continue the narrative and all that kind of stuff. Of course, the Christian narrative structure is a little bit different in that rather than on the summer solstice, it's actually around the spring equinox, Passover, spring equinox, Easter, that this crescendo happens, that this kind of conclusion of the story rolls up. Summer comes Pentecost, which is when the Holy Spirit comes down and drops all of her cool magic on the apostles. Okay, cool. But in general, it follows that same theme on the winter solstice. So a lot of the symbols between Christianity and paganism, they're going to be similar, right? We've got stars, right? We've got Jesus with the North Star, or whatever star that the three kings followed. We have, in the sky, there's the North Star. There's all these kinds of things that promise, celestial bodies are watching. Stars are a big thing. There's also, of course, candles. Candles are a massive thing between pagan and Christian cultures. And when it's dark, obviously the only way to light anything back then is through lanterns, through candles, through other such things. So fires, all this stuff, it represents that light in the darkness again. Evergreen. Obviously, again, pagans have been using evergreen for a long time to represent something that stays alive, even when everything else has lost its leaves and has died off. Christians started this myth basically that they stayed green because they had such faith in God that, God let them never lose their needles. There's also the idea that Martin Luther, of all people, invented the Christmas tree because he happened to see the stars through the branches of a pine tree, thought it was so pretty that he just cut down a tree, took it home, and put a bunch of lit candles in it, which is, not fire safe. But whatever. Much different than a Yule log, right? Yule log being a literal whole tree just kind of wood chipped into the fireplace over time. Very different thing. But you can see now that the birth of the Son of God and the birth of the Sun God, as well as the idea of the light growing stronger throughout the year, is pretty much adjacent, right? Because most cultures had these ideas. These aren't new ideas, right? There's no one culture who can put a trademark on that concept. If you live in a place where it gets cold one part of the year and it gets hot another part of the year and it gets dark one part of the year and it gets light another part of the year, you're gonna have similar ideas as to what this means. But the last thing, which this year more than ever I think is really important, is the theme of that peril, that struggle, and that hope for a better future. So when you have, as I was saying before, you have these certain gods of mischief and magic in the underworld with all their underworld spirits out and it kind of just causing chaos and general mischief. When you have genuinely dangerous spirits running around, when you have just the cold itself, which has been personified into many different spirits like Karachun or Morosh, when you have these kinds of spirits rolling around threatening you, one of the big themes of winter is the theme of endurance and resistance and holding on, right? Fortitude, surviving to see the spring. Likewise, if we look at the story of Jesus, one of the most iconic parts of Jesus' story is that he was born in a manger out in a barn somewhere because Joseph and Mary were on the run. This was during a time where all boys under 2 were being killed because the leader at the time, I believe Herod, was afraid that, this boy born of this prophecy was going to overthrow his rule and just kind of mess everything up for him. So he tried to have every single boy born at that time killed. So the story goes. Mary and Joseph managed to evade them. The angels helped them get out. They managed to survive and endure, and that boy grew up. Likewise, right, so we have these spirits trying to keep their hold in winter, trying to hang on, and then the sun god is born and grows stronger. Likewise, we have over here this earthly ruler who is trying to maintain his rule, who's trying to get rid of this prophesized baby, and Mary and Joseph protect him until he grows stronger and can complete the story. And especially in a time like now where we see the state of Jesus' homeland now, we see the tragedies going on, we understand the gravity of, his home city, Bethlehem, saying we're not celebrating Christmas this year. It's precisely that theme of endurance in the face of extreme injustice and cruelty that is something to really focus on this time around. When we talk about a light in the darkness, it reminds you of another famous saying, right? The light at the end of the tunnel. That light at the end of the tunnel is something that brings a lot of people hope. That, yep, you're in it right now and it's terrible and it's horrible, but there is a bright side, there is an end, there is something better coming. That might be hard for people to hold on to right now, given the way things are turning. However, if there's any part of Christmas that we can still hold on to, it is that. If there's any part of Christmas worth observing right now, it is that. It is the idea that there is hope still to be had, that there is good that will prevail, that the darkness does not last forever. And I bring up these similarities to say, me personally, I'm kind of lazy, and I don't really like to celebrate pagan or, like, you know, witchy holidays separate from Christian ones, because it's a lot of work. Like, I will be the first to say that, hey, observing holidays is a lot of work, and in fact, it's being an adult that now helps me understand the difference between celebrating a holiday and observing a holiday. But right, when I said, oh, this holiday is observed, I was like, what does this mean? You either celebrate it or you don't. Well, no. When you celebrate a holiday, that usually means you're going all out. You're cooking things, you're having people over, you're celebrating it with people. It's a big thing, right? It takes preparation, it takes time, it takes energy. Observing a holiday is more like you can kind of just see it in passing. And that's very nice, right? That's great. So holidays that I would observe versus celebrate are like the equinoxes, because, like, I don't really care to celebrate the autumn equinox, or I guess except for spring. Spring and summer, these are things I observe. Winter and spring are ones that I celebrate, because obviously, right? Winter, Christmas, spring, Easter. There are Christian holidays around summer, right? We've got St. John's Day, and we've got, the Feast of the Assumption, which both used to be bigly celebrated, or widely celebrated. And then we also have, St. Matthew's Day, and also St. Michael the Archangel's Day in September, which around the autumn equinox. These also used to be largely celebrated. So you can still celebrate them. For me, though, since they're not major holidays, I just like have a shot with Michael, or maybe, I don't know, have a nice day on Midsummer and leave it at that. It's Christmas and Easter where I get going, and where I just include all of the meanings of the spring equinox and of Yule into my Christian holiday going. Knowing these similarities between Yule and Christmas, instead of having to have two separate celebrations, I mean, if you want to, by all means go ahead, but if you don't want to, what you can do is instead see these overlapping themes and pick your symbols to unite it all with your family on whichever day you end up celebrating. If you ended up all celebrating on Christmas, congratulations. It's both a Yule and Christmas celebration all at the same time. I mean, Christmas used to be called Yuletide for a long time anyway, so all those themes are still there. All of the aesthetic obviously has syncretized over time. You don't have to have 20 different parties to be a witch. You can condense it, right? Combine it, coalesce it into one thing. So, if you were thinking about doing a bunch of different stuff for Yule and Christmas this year, hopefully this helps you kind of figure out ways to just combine it, make it less work for yourself, and I hope you guys have a great holiday season. See ya!